ended up in Vegas, where we're not talking to anyone else today but each other.
I still think we should have done this with wine.
What's your favorite accent?
It has changed. Maybe like Northern Ireland or Scotland.
Do it.
I'm not good at it.
I feel like my English accent is very backcountry. I've been told that actually.
I think I can do an okay British accent, but they always merge into.
I can do a very pretty.
This is too easy. If you had $1 million, if you had to spend $1 million in one day, what would you buy? So easy.
What would you buy on 3? 1, 2, 3. A house.
I don't think $1 million gets you a beach house anymore, though. Maybe in Mississippi.
You got a fractional share of a beach house, girl. What's the best way I can show up for you when you're going through it?
Being there, being responsive.
I haven't always been that way, huh?
Yeah.
You're like, hello.
I don't mean
Are you there?
expediency.
Okay.
Yeah, I just mean when you do show up.
Being present.
Yeah. And engaging. And
Yeah.
Yeah. Validating.
I feel like you show up best, and the reason that you're super helpful for me is you tell me to not beat myself up over things. You're not the asshole. This is the perspective.
Mm-hmm. But what's the best way I can? Do you feel like that's, or do you feel like
that is the best way that you can?
Okay.
That's literally, I think, how you have blessed my life is by I feel like, especially in the season that I've been in, it's you can go really hard on yourself during certain moments, and you've helped me to not.
Well, I feel the same way because I feel
self-destruct.
I feel like I'm really hard on myself in general, and I think you've given me confidence to just be not so hard on myself.
I try to emulate you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so you for her. Even I'm terrible on camera. You're you are not terrible on camera. Mm-mm. Okay. You say I'm not terrible on camera, so I must not be terrible on camera.
No, you're not. And I think that's actually one of the ways that I learn best is by seeing someone else do it.
Yeah.
If I can see someone else do something, then I can figure out a way in my wheelhouse to replicate it.
You're good at that.
Yeah.
But you're good about doing that. And I think the way that my mind works on things is okay, how can I make a formula and then follow it? I'm much more even in writing a bio, how should I do it? But you're just very creative and taking something and making it your own.
Well, I think because I'm a questioner, it's hard for me to duplicate or do something just like someone else.
I don't want to.
Yeah. So I especially let's make it easily relatable. In Pilates, if I see someone do it, it's there's a different position that my body needs to be in that's specific to my height and my size and even the length of my torso versus my legs or whatever, right? Because I have a long torso. And it's how do I make this work for me? And also, how do I persist through this? Where it's I didn't just learn how to do it, but I actually learned how to sustain it.
I think that maybe I'm wrong, but I feel one of the maybe fundamental differences. I think sometimes you'll see something and that's how can I make this my own? Was it the comedian I sent you where she's you have that and I want that, right? Mm-hmm. I think my first inclination is I can't do that or I'll never look like that. And there's a moment where I'm there's maybe a little bit of insecurity, and I think that's my default. And then I'm okay, well, we're different people and I have different strengths, so you know what I mean, and I'll look at a different way, or maybe I'm not good at that but I can be good at this. But I think you more think I want to be able to do that, but I'm going to make it my own. Whereas I think my default is, I don't want to say insecurity, but it's it's a more vulnerable kind of
right
hard on myself kind of first thought.
That's interesting. There's maybe a root cause to that. And telehealth was just found somewhere for us with a therapist.
But I will say that there are times where I see people do things and I think my opinion of them is these people are really amazing. And then I watch them do something and I'm there's no special sauce.
No. And that's where my face goes white. I'm just huh?
Yeah.
Why do we need to make this such a big production?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I think sometimes I can oversimplify it too. Mm-hmm. So What are you proudest of us for getting through together?
This.
This podcast right here.
Eventually it will be this market.
I don't know. I feel like
It's not that bad.
I don't, there are just certain narratives that I just don't ever want to push.
Yeah.
And like the market is hard I could gag. Like the like when people small talk about real estate things, it's just like, yeah, the market's slow, the market's tough, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's like the market's changing and that's how it's forever going to be. That's the story.
If you want a business that's consistent and reliable and is always going to be the same, do not get into real estate.
Nope. Don't come here.
Nope. I mean, I think that I'm guilty of being like the market. It is challenging, right? Like it is challenging. But you can either be a whiner or you can be a winner and figure out a way to navigate, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, mentally, I think that's where I get cut off is if I believe, if I feed into that,
Right.
Statement, then that's where I start to become less focused on how to work around it.
Well, I think you just have to pivot.
Yeah.
Pivot.
Lots of pivots and maneuvers. What do you need brutally honest advice about?
Don't ever give me brutally honest advice. I'm too soft for that.
No, you're not. Oh gosh, this is all along these lines. What growth have you seen in me recently that's been exciting to watch?
Should we pull out the fun questions from
I
yesterday?
know, these are so deep. This is level 3 stuff. Have I changed your mind about anything? That's interesting.
Yeah. So many things.
I think we had a conversation about religion like recently that changed my mind. Probably not in the way that you would want my mind to be changed. But I do think that I think that's where I was actually reflecting on this other day is I'm definitely more mystic, more of a mystic, and you are a believer. And so I believe in all things. I have no problem with anyone's belief. And for a long time I had very staunch beliefs in one subset of, of a religion. So I think that's where I continue to get even broader and more open is the more I live, the less I think I know for sure. But then there are some things that I do know for sure, Yeah,
I think that there's some things that we can never really know for sure. And I think I say this, the older I get, the less I know, the less I'm sure about things. And I think it's about being open to new information and, being open to my ideas, I'm grounded in a certain belief system, but I'm open to, there's so much I'm learning about it that I'm open to, it might look very differently, there's certain beliefs, and because there's a foundational belief system and then there's stuff off of it. And I'm just not very prescriptive about it being the way that I think it is. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I'm very open to it looking and being different than how I imagine it.
Yeah.
And I think different perspectives give you different insights into that. And I think we all walk different roads and different lives. And so you've got a different perspective than I do.
Well, and I think that that's how we are despite the difference, we're continuing to evolve as people. And that's where I think when you lack the openness, you become more resistant to change and growth. And I think that's where you and I both are very highly reflective people. And you do make new decisions as new information comes along. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think if there was some concrete evidence or something showed up in my life tomorrow or today that told me that everything I've believed up until a certain point was wrong, it's difficult, but I'd be okay.
Yeah. Well, and it's still everything that I believed still got me to the point where I'm at. So I'm super thankful for it. I would never give that experience back. Just don't want to go there again.
I don't blame you.
Oh, in what ways do our differences complement each other?
I think we covered that.
Look at that. We're psychic.
But even more so, we're so similar in a lot of ways. And I don't necessarily mean personality or whatever, but I think just our values, because somebody was asking me why do you guys, why does it work so well? I'm we're very different on some things. but we're also very similar on some things. I think you're much better at you continue moving forward, and I'll get stuck. Like if I can't do something, like for example, we were doing shorts this week, and I'm like, maybe I was tired, but like you just keep moving forward, you know. Whereas sometimes like I'll put that off and I'll do that later because I can't do it perfectly. You're much more likely to keep moving forward and get it done and just move on from it. You know.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But that's also, you know, what's a blessing has also been criticized as a curse is like, oh, you just like bulldoze, you keep adding. Like I would have directors who'd be like, we get one thing and you're like, move this set now. And it's like, yeah, because you mastered that. So like, that's what you do, right? In like in everything that you're to execute in your life, anything you practice, you should be moving up, like
improving upon it. I mean, when you're like, can you add B-roll? And I'm like, fuck you. No. I'm kidding. I didn't say that. But I was like, I think we're stretching the bandwidth of my skill set. But I've been criticized for asking too many questions.
Oh, that's a really unhealthy criticism, I feel like.
Yeah. And I was even told that I'm opinionated, which I will own that. But like in home building, interestingly enough, I would always ask a lot of questions about how things were done because the way that my mind works, I have like an idea, like I'm constantly thinking of ideas and how to improve things, how to make them better. And so my mind is always working. And so a lot of times I ask questions and people who are really territorial about what they do would get really offended because they've done it, probably invested a lot of time into doing it a certain way or designing something a certain way. And sometimes I'm just asking the question, not necessarily because I want to change it. I just want to understand. And there are people who are very like this about their piece of the pie or their work. Yeah. They would get really offended.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think there's like, I ask questions for the same reasons, but then sometimes I will also ask questions when I want to
steer.
Yeah. I mean like, or criticize really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is like it, you know, and make it thought provoking.
Yeah.
So that maybe that's how they're taking it. But I think that's also sounds like someone very, you know, takes things very personally.
Yeah.
What book, I'm going off of these things. What book are you reading right now?
What book am I not reading? I've got a few of them going. I'm reading one. It's like The 7 Principles of Marriage by John Gottman.
Oh.
And it's basically, or what makes marriages work. Interesting.
Secret.
Huh?
What's the secret according to John Gottman? I picked up a book. So we went to a party last week that there was a psychic, I'm going to say that word loosely, who was reading tarot. And I've had tarot readings before where they're just like, you know, super spiritual people who are in tune with the cards and they know, you know, kind of what the process is. It's not like crazy, difficult, evil, whatever. I think it can be like, you know, it's not coincidental. I think it's a part of storytelling and potentially you take what you know, want and leave the rest. But anyway, after that experience, I picked up some tarot cards and then I bought a book to like guide and to just do it for fun, like at parties and gatherings and stuff. And I found this book called Tarot for Change.
Okay.
And it is so good. She's talking about all the like symbolism of the cards and the stories that they tell and how they can help you like personally grow and reflect. And they're super helpful things in both of them. She has like a background in psychology and she did a like ton of yoga and that's how she was led to like learn about the tarot cards more. But it's been so good. Like I think I'm going to listen to it 3 or 4 times by the time I'm
Does it tell you how to read the cards?
Yeah. It tells you a little bit, well, not how to read the cards so far. It's just been about the cards.
Okay.
And I think as, you know, a former Mormon, like the things that I thought were beautiful about the religion when I was in it was all of the symbolism. And I think if you kind of, you know, catch on to the cues of other symbols and things that are, you know, like important to you and you kind of keep, and also you keep watch over those things, right? Where you're like seeing repeated symbols and you're seeing, like, I do believe that there is like a creator. I do believe that there is like everything still exists on a spiritual level that's past. So like I feel my dad when, when the sun shines super bright, I'm walking through the mountains and I, have those experiences. So I think like things with nature, things with people who you love, like certain feelings and, stuff can be verified.
Yeah.
Or just help you like reflect and be like, I need to change this, or this is what I'm like, identifying things that you want to work on and dive deeper into.
Yeah. I love that.
So that you can learn yourself better.
I too saw a psychic last week.
You did?
Psychic chicken.
What?
A psychic chicken. There is a psychic chicken at the Seattle Pike's Place Market, and it spits out a little egg with a fortune.
What did it say?
A bunch of stuff. I'll have to read it to you.
Was it like informational?
Yeah.
Interesting?
Yeah, it was interesting. Like, I mean, I think a lot of these things can apply to most people, but it was like you're riding the winds of change, and you need to look at the big picture to be able to kind of drill down on what the plan is. And I was like, yeah, this is actually kind of fitting, because I still feel like even though we're, about a year into this team and this business, like we're still the podcast is new. We're still transforming.
Yeah.
We're still just kind of at the tip of it. And I feel and have for a long time. I think I don't know if I told you this, but I've felt for a while like I'm on the tarmac. And there's change that's coming. I don't know what it's going to be, but like I feel like everything that we're doing is preparing us for something.
That's
and we're
so
like
funny.
getting ready, like we're getting ready to take off, but we're not there yet.
That's literally what the psychic told me last summer.
Shut up.
She was literally like, I don't know what you're doing, but it's going to be big.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I felt like that.
Yeah.
And I can't even explain